Okay, welcome to the video for assessing. In this video, we're going to learn different ways of having your students assess themselves and how you can assess your students during this personalized learning in your math time. You're going to need to have a blank planning sheet and a pencil to watch this video. We're going to be filling it out together while you learn and understand how to have your students assess. You go through this unit. I'm doing a multiplication unit. This is based on a 4th grade topic. You'll see that the first 2 lessons in our unit are multiplying tens and estimating multiplication. And in order to look at this, we're going to talk about 2 different types of assessing. One of them is going to be how students self-assess. They will learn to pace themselves and monitor their own learning by doing self-assessment. And the other way is how they're going to do assessments at the end of the lesson, and that's going to let them know whether or not they should be able to move on to the second lesson in our series. So for us, we've looked at our planning sheet. The first lesson is going to be multiplying tens, and the second one is going to be estimating multiplication. Let's talk about how students are going to self-assess. So this planning sheet is already filled out with 4 different practice choices that they can have while they are moving through the unit. Now, I've written a 2 down here because that's going to highlight what it says at the top. At the top of this sheet, it talks about how they're going to complete 2 practice choices. Now, if they need to complete a 3rd practice choice because they haven't quite mastered the lesson yet, that is fine. That is going to be what they're going to do, and you're going to assist them with that. Now, what they do have to realize, and what you as a teacher have to realize too, is the fact that if you have to assess every single one of these topics for each of your children, it's going to be a lot of unnecessary work for you. And it's going to be a lot of work that might be a little too overwhelming at first. So let's teach our students to self-assess and monitor their own learning. That being said, what you need is the activities, and then what you're going to need also is an answer key for that. Let me show you what those look like. Now, here's a worksheet that I've gotten from k5learning.com. This is a 5th grade worksheet. But K5 Learning also comes with nice answer keys to go with it. Now what I do, I keep my files together. Students know where these answer keys are, and they know exactly where the worksheets are that they can complete. And as they go through this, they'll be able to see how well did they do on this. Now, depending on what kind of scoring system you use, that'll depend. So let's say a student did choose worksheet 2 for this practice, and they completed it on 1025. What score did they get? Now, my district uses standards-based grading. Now, one of the biggest questions we have is, what score did I get? And it's a good question. How do you score yourself? Do you grade yourself on a percentage? Did you grade yourself as a fractional score? Like 12 out of 16? Or did you grade yourself as a standard? We use the idea of like a 3 is equal to mastery. Okay, so that being said, you also have to remember, students are going to need to know what the appropriate score is that allows them to move on. Is it a 95? Is it an 85 or better? Is it getting a 3 on something? Is it getting 12 out of 16? Is it a percentage? You have to decide that what works well for your curriculum, your program, and your classroom. All right? But the number one thing is you have to teach them. This is not something they're going to learn. Self-assessing is new. But once you go through that with them and they understand, they're able to do this kind of self-assessing. This is just a perfect example of how one of my students graded themselves. I've blocked out their name. But they had the answer key here. This was a worksheet that was a total of 10 problems. They marked themselves using the answer guide and then gave themselves a score in the top right corner here. The student knew that they were fine. They got this. They did not need a teacher to intervene. They did not need a teacher to tell them that they got everything correctly. And they did not need a teacher to say, hey, I understand this topic. I mean, that being said now, so you should have your students be scoring themselves. Like I said, 3 is an okay. That is exactly what we're looking for. And let's say they did this on... This shows that they chose 2 practices here, and they got 2 3s. They've earned 2 3s to show what they know. They're ready to move on to the final part of a lesson. So as they master their skills, they're going to complete an exit ticket or quick check to say, hey, look, I'm going to show what I know. This is going to be the expressing part of the personalized learning, right? And let me show you quickly what they look like. Okay, here's just an example of one of the exit tickets here. Quick 6 questions that they're going to answer. And now, the key thing here, they're going to hand this in to me. They're not going to self-assess this. This is something that I would use to see where they're at in their learning. This is not something I will be helping them with. This is not something that they're going to get help from their peers with. This is going to be a show it, prove it that you know it opportunity. A common question is, what happens if they don't do well on the exit ticket, right? So if they don't perform to theirs or your expectations, what you're going to have to do, they're just going to go back and do another learn, whether that's meet with the teacher, meet with you, meet with a peer, watch a video again. Whatever it is, they need to make sure that they're understanding what they're learning, and then they'll do some more practice. The idea of the assessment part of this is if you don't know it yet, that's okay. You always have an opportunity to go back and practice some more, and then have another time to show what you know. I'm not sure if you're feeling ambitious with your first time trying this, but what you can do is think about some alternative types of assessments. Now, obviously we said quick checks are a huge thing, exit tickets, but maybe you can just have a conversation with the student and call that your assessment. Maybe you can have them make their own little mini videos about how they're doing something. Whatever way you decide to have assess your children, and before you allow them to move on to the next mini lesson, it's up to you, but they should have a way of showing what they know and proving what they've learned. And like we've talked about, they're going to be doing their learn, their practice, and when they finally show what they know on their quick check and they've earned their 3 or their appropriate score that shows they are ready to move on, they're going to move on to lesson 2. And that's how this program works. They're moving on at their own pace and when they are ready and they've demonstrated mastery in their topic.